go. All right. Hey, friends. Welcome back to Real Adult Wisdom, the podcast for, I don't even know what I'm saying right now. All right. The podcast for when you're finally ready to stop people pleasing, start healing, and maybe, just maybe, stop saying it's fine when it's very much not fine. I am Becky Shaffer, your host, and I have my, I'd like to say permanent guest, Leslie Brooks. I call us the dynamic duo now.
I know.
Just,
I'm here for it.
Okay, so we're all here for the dynamic duo, and we're here to entertain you, I hope. But Leslie's also an amazing life coach. But today we're going to dive into the beautiful topic of forgiveness. This is a brutal topic at times and misunderstood most of the time. The word forgiveness is deep. But it's not a one size fits all. There's many types of forgiveness, and that's what we're going to get into today. So forgiveness doesn't always come with a big old warm hug. Sometimes it comes with dirty looks. And it's not like a group therapy with a drum circle, although we have a great drum circle here in Asheville. Have you been?
No, not yet. We've only been here a year.
Friday night drum circle. It is so cool. But I do want to start with what forgiveness is not, because I think people sometimes just say sorry just to say it. But what forgiveness is not. So forgiveness does not mean you forget what happened. Absolutely not. You don't excuse the behavior. You don't have to send a Christmas card. And you don't need to invite people back into your life to wreck it all over again. So it's not like permission. It's not pretending. It's not telling people, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. And I think a lot of people are afraid to speak up to that sometimes. Like if you did something, you made me mad. I'm like, that made me mad. You say sorry. I'll be like, well, I'm glad you're sorry, but it's not okay. You know? And I think people are afraid to talk like that. So people need to take accountability, rebuild their trust, and work towards healing together, especially if it's a friendship or a partnership or a marriage. We'll be saying sorry a lot. It's just mean it instead of pleasing your person.
Definitely part of the gift that is marriage or friendships, etc.
Right. So forgiveness, that's a soul act. So I'm going to, you can forgive someone without ever seeing them again. I've had to do that. You can forgive someone who isn't sorry, because you're not really forgiving them, so to speak. You're forgiving for yourself. And you're also forgiving yourself. At times we get upset with ourselves because we allowed something in our lives that we should not have allowed in our lives. We allowed someone to come in, treat us a certain way, which in turn then we reacted a certain way. Like earlier, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring this up. You said, you're in a situation where you had to forgive somebody, but you should have known because you saw red flags. So you had to forgive yourself. And I think we don't realize that forgiveness isn't just forgiving somebody else, it's forgiving ourselves as well. And sometimes you don't have closure with a conversation. You have to figure out that closure and forgiveness on your own. So sometimes the person who hurt you walks away, never looks back. Sometimes they die. Sometimes they ghost you. Sometimes they deny, deflect, or disappear. And then you are left to hold that wreckage and that responsibility for healing. That's now your responsibility to heal. And that's when it becomes private and sacred. And it's like an internal act that you have to do within yourself. So forgiveness is definitely something that I never really thought too deeply about it, because I had some situations in my life where I've had to do forgiving, but we need to give ourselves permission that we do not need their acknowledgement to heal. Somebody who hurt you, you do not need their acknowledgement to heal. You do not need their apology to be whole, and you don't need a conversation to begin letting go. Because closure is often something that you have to give yourself. You want to add on that before I talk about my father? Father issues.
I think one of the things that I think is so important to remember is that this is an unhooking from a story that you're owed anything. And because when we wait for someone to do something so that we can let it go, they still hold us in bondage.
Because we in our heads have projected what we are seeing that relationship should have been.
Yeah. And truthfully, where I think what we need to understand is actually forgiveness starts with an internal conversation that says a lot of times judgment goes along with the lack of forgiveness. So if I'm sitting here and I'm looking at someone like, how dare they do this, show up in this way? You know, we're all human. There's an expanse of emotions and behaviors that show up in our life. And if we wouldn't forgive ourselves for showing up in that way, that's where we've got to start. Mm-hmm. Because if we actually go back and realize that, you know what, it's not possible that I haven't been selfish. It's not possible that I haven't made mistakes. It's not possible. And if I can forgive myself in that mistake, then it's much easier to unhook, to recognize that we're all human. And so that's the unhooking from the story. It's the recognition that we all fuck up. We all are meant to fuck up and learn how to repair. And repair is what this is about. Repairing internal alignment, allowing us to move about the world without needing anything else from anyone, because we're the only people we can control.
Right. And I think where a lot of adults get hooked on is they're still kind of living in their child self, because as an adult, they haven't allowed themselves to forgive their child self, mm-hmm. because their child self at that time was doing the best that they knew mm-hmm. to do at the time. And so as an adult, obviously we learn as life goes on and our journey goes on, and we start learning like lessons in life. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we weren't born with this manual titled forgiveness. Yeah. And I think a lot of times adults are reacting in their child self because that's the mechanism that helped them survive at that moment. And so as an adult, like I said the last time in our podcast, you know, I wrote a letter to my child self saying, it's okay, you made it. Like, you know, forgive yourself. Like, you did the best you could in that moment. And I think a lot of people, when they get into adulthood, they are holding on to that child self and they're angry because they have not forgiven themselves for certain situations, mm-hmm. depending on how you grew up. And that's, you know, I mean, I'll share this too. And I know like we both kind of come in here with, everybody has their stories, you know. I'm one of 4 children, and we were pretty severely abused to the point where we were removed, you know, from the home. We were put in a children's home and then went to live with different families. And each one of us handled the abuse differently, whether we lived as a victim, whether we live today as a healed version or still healing, because it's always a healing journey when you've had a different type of upbringing. And, you know, it took me years to realize that not only did I needed to forgive my dad, not for him, but for me. And, you know, he wasn't a father, not in the way that a child needs one, and not in a way I deserved. And yet I had to find a way to forgive him, not because he apologized, because that did not happen. And not because he made amends, and certainly not because he earned it. You know, I forgave him because I refused to let his choices define my life, you know, and who I am today. And I wrote notes on this because I had to. I have so much to say. And so forgiveness in this case, it wasn't about restoring a relationship with him. It was about reclaiming my power. It was about saying, you don't get to keep living in my head or controlling my sense of worth or shaping how I show up in this world. Because at first I allowed that to shape me, and I was making relationship decisions, and I was behaving in relationships in a way I'm not proud of because I was allowing this to shape me.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's forgiveness is not just a light switch I could turn on and say, oh, I forgive you. Let me turn the light on. It's long and it's complicated. And it hurts and it's unraveling, and it's something that lies in you every day as you're rebuilding the truth of who you are. I had to rebuild my truth, and I think that's hard work and it's uncomfortable to rebuild your truth of who you are, and of course, along the way, I had a lot of bad choices. I found comfort in dating bad, and I found comfort in being treated bad because at one time I truly believed I didn't deserve the love and kindness from a partner that I truly deserve. So I used to think if I forgave him, that it meant that what he did didn't matter anymore. But it does matter. What he did will always matter, But what I've learned that forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't erase like the triggers. It just loosens the grip on my present. So I don't forgive to free him. I forgave so I could breathe. Mm-hmm. And that was part of writing the Dear Child letter, which is in one of my episodes on trauma. But forgiving him allowed me to stop being the little girl begging to be seen or to stop dragging the weight of unmet needs and unanswered questions into every corner of my life. And I also think having kids myself helped me realize the way I was treated is not how a parent treats somebody, because you don't know if that's the only way you've been treated, right? But, here's been a twist. There's been a twist here. And my dad has recently gotten pretty sick. And I'm not going to lie, I've called him the sperm donor my entire life because my stepdad was actually my dad. So I just laugh at that now. But, he's recently got pretty sick and he's reached out. And at first I was like, okay. And I really didn't feel any way of anything because I already forgave and I already did the work. So it didn't trigger anything and it really didn't make me upset. If anything, I feel bad for him. Mm-hmm. He lost 4 kids. He had a whole life without grandkids. Like it was his loss and that his actions were those consequences. And it's not for me to feel bad for him. Mm-hmm. But it's taken decades for him to actually, like 2 weeks ago, he's like, I'm really sorry. I was a horrible father. I didn't treat you well. I'm not proud of any of my actions. And I'm sorry. And I was like, holy shit. He just apologized.
That's big.
It was so big. It's taken decades for that to happen. And truthfully, there was a time that I never thought I'd hear those words, and I heard them and they were genuine. Like I know in my heart and my gut they were genuine. But he said them and they landed. And I'm thankful for that. I think he's 85 and sick. So he's not doing well. But I didn't really feel this flood of peace or closure because I've already had that. Mm-hmm. Like I already did that work within myself. But with a lot of people, unfortunately, this will stir up some triggers and some of your past. But you grieve for the child who didn't get that apology when she needed it the most. I thought about like little Becky, mm-hmm. Or little Boo. Everybody called me Boo. Okay. I'm going to admit
like that.
I know. I was Boo. So I just thought about that little girl who never got that apology, but then my adult self can give that girl that apology. I know it sounds so weird talking like that. But believe it or not, it was a very healing experience writing to your child self, Mm-hmm. So I felt a relief and sadness in the same breath. And I hold on to the words carefully because they're fragile, because you want to make sure you're not buying into something that's not real, Yeah. So he has pretty much reached out to me every day just to say hi, good morning, have a good day on Messenger. And he'll be getting moved, to a different assisted living place. And yeah, so we actually like talk and say hi now. But here's one thing, and I want you to share your story. So here's what I learned, and yes, I took notes on these too. So I do have my papers in front of me. Well, because we're on live, but when I'm doing a podcast, nobody can see my papers. So what I really learned about receiving an apology late in life is, you're allowed to feel everything. You can feel gratitude. You can feel anger. You can feel sadness, compassion, confusion. You're going to feel all of these mixed bag of emotions, I call them. And you don't have to pick one emotion and camp out there. Mm-mm. I mean, don't camp out there. You don't owe an instant resolution to this. An apology doesn't mean all the pain just vanishes away. I mean, it happened. It just means there's a new layer of truth on the table, and you get to decide what to do with that new layer of truth. I've decided to say good morning back. I've decided to tell him to have a good day, because in my heart and soul, at the end of the day, no matter what has happened, I forgave him. And at the end of the day, that is my father, but not really. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can accept an apology and still hold boundaries. So there'll still be boundaries, and there's boundaries I will never allow him to ever cross. And forgiveness doesn't always mean that there's reconciliation. Even the words, I'm sorry, you get to decide what relationship, if any, comes next. Mm-hmm. So now it's in your court. Like, you did the work, you forgave this person. And now when they say sorry, it is, you now have control of what you do with that. And that's a pretty good damn feeling, actually, mm-hmm. because this is probably the first time I've actually felt in control of these emotions and this relationship with the sperm donor. Mm-hmm. And then you can still be proud of the work you did before you ever owned it. That healing, that growth, that was you. That was me. That's whoever's listening who has healed. Long before they showed up with their words, you were doing the work, and that matters. And that's something that you have to remember. Even when people that have hurt you and you've already done the work, and then they finally show up and say, I'm sorry, do not allow yourself to slide backwards. Keep going forward. You did so much work to get there. They're also apologizing because they're at some point in their life where they need that for themselves as well. So mm-hmm. he's probably come to an epiphany that he's not doing well, and life is not going to last much longer. And, he's getting a wake-up call like, wow, my whole life is over, and I ruined most of it by being an asshole.
Yeah, I see you.
Girl, I see you too, because you have a parent story too. What's up with these? We're good parents.
No, I do my best. I will share that parenting also is what brought me into the awareness that certain things have to stop. I'm sitting here in the unfamiliarity of a parent apologizing. And even late in life, even with, I always hold out hope that the dynamic that I was raised in with my mother will change. And because that's who I am. But it's not something that I'm holding my breath for. I love my mother, and I cut her off 64 days ago because I did forgive her a long time ago. I've always had I always knew it was just really a messed up relationship. It just was as I got older, it's just no possibility that I could always be the one messing up, that I always was the bad middle child. And I got into a series of relationships that, were just narcissistic, all about them. And I allowed it to happen because that's how I knew how to exist in a relationship. I was trained to meet her needs. I have worked through not having life skill for money. for emotional management. I've worked through not being able to show up in a healthy space in the world and be able to take up space in the world without apologizing. And I came into, I had a relationship that, you know, it was either get out and figure out what was going on, or I was going to die. I mean, that is the reality of what was going on. And at the time I had a child, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't have her be like me. So I enter into what's called developmental and relational trauma therapy with Dr. Rick Butts in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the way I came at figuring out that things were wrong was that my symptoms, I didn't believe it was my mom. I believed it was me that was defective and flawed, and I needed validation from people. So these behaviors I had were all due to having some really twisted shame put on me. And so what has happened is I have busted my ass to understand for a number of years why my mother did that, why I do what I do, why. And in all that, I came to certain things. The bigger one being, nobody wants to be unloving. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, nobody wants to be a source of disconnection. It just isn't a thing. And in that moment that she maybe is behaving and pushing shame onto me or someone else, or I'm showing up and shaming myself, I'm believing a fucking lie that either someone is a threat or I'm a threat to my own worth. Your worth is not up for debate, no matter how you behave. And right. Shifting blame onto somebody else is not going to solve the problem. It might momentarily, but it's not. And I have been blamed for everything. And I blame myself. And so I came at this moment where I realized she's believing something about me that can't be true because she's believing it about herself. Nobody doesn't want to be loving. And 64 days ago, I recognized that pattern was going to make me hate her. And so I chose to withdraw to protect the love that was still there. And it's the hardest thing that I'm doing. I mean, if we ever reconcile and she sees us, she'll be pissed as hell at this. But here's a reality. That relationship affected the way that I showed up, and I have to let go of that because I will stew. My blood pressure will go up. I will be miserable, and I will see all the people who show up like her and hate them too. And I want to be a source of compassion. I have shown up like her before, and I need to have compassion for myself there. But at the end of the day, the reframe in this story is my mom doesn't want to be hateful. Nobody wants to be like this. And nobody wants to shift blame onto a 4-year-old child, or it just isn't a thing. And so they can continue to believe what they want, but I believe different. I believe I deserve compassion. I believe they deserve compassion. And I'm going to work at that because that's who I am. That's not who I was told I was, but as certainly who I am.
I like where you said that you had to withdraw. I did this podcast on withdrawal deposits, and a lot of us don't withdraw when we're not getting deposits. So it's almost like, the who's filling your cup analogy. So I like where you said you had to withdraw, and you withdraw because you need to give yourself deposits, and you're also not going to allow this to define you.
No. And I have a child who I love her to pieces.
And is watching,
I'm sure, and who has some similar behaviors. It's a discussion that we've had. And that's it too. It was that moment of having a child where she said the most hurtful thing. And I thought, she doesn't want to be like that. That doesn't feel good. And I recognized I would not even dare say the shit to her that has been said to me in a moment that she said the most hurtful thing. And that's when it changes. It's when you're you couldn't have hit the nail on the head, at least from a parenting aspect. Like when you look and say, this kid said something vile, and she's a young, immature brain, that's what happens. Again, compassion.
No filter.
Right? I don't have one either.
I don't either.
No speed bump between my brain and my mouth. But at the end of the day, if I wouldn't say even anything that was said to me in moments that my mother was cross at me, like, what am I doing showing up for that to happen again?
Right. You're putting yourself in that situation.
Yeah. And there's not going to be accountability, at least that I can see in the foreseeable future. And so I'm going to withdraw because I don't hate her. I love her. And if we can figure out a way at accountability and reconciliation, I don't hate her and wish she was dead.
No, but you are refusing to stay tethered to the version of yourself that was only surviving.
Yeah.
And that's all you were doing, is only surviving that. So you're not erasing the story. You're just changing who holds the pen.
Yeah.
And that's you. And you get to rewrite your new chapter on this.
I do.
And she may or may not join. I never thought my sperm donor would ever, like, say sorry, but I can't even tell you how much that means to me to hear the, like, and it wasn't just oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing the rosary at church today. God forgives me.
Yeah. Right.
That's what I used to get.
Yeah.
Literally.
Oh, God.
This was an actual legit, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And admitting. So there's never been an admittance. So I can only hope and send all the vibes out in the universe to your mom that, this happens too. Because there comes a time where they realize we're the bomb and they miss us.
I hope that's true. I'm not feeling that.
You're so fresh.
It's still 64 days. Whew. It's rough. It's so triggering. I mean, like,
I'm proud of you though. I'm proud of you for withdrawing for yourself, because now you're putting deposits in yourself. You're holding the pen. You're writing this story, because you are not going to be what happened to you. No.
And I will honestly say it is so deeply hard to take up space in my world with my husband and with my kids, to take up space and say that I have needs. But as I'm not continuing in that relationship, I'm not getting reminders of that. And so I get to move on and do what I've been working 16 years to try to do, which is just save myself, to protect myself.
And I think we all do that to a degree, but doing it healthy is really important, because you're going to be what you choose to be.
Yeah.
And we all are.
And I think too, like, to discount the conversation we're having, you don't do this healing alone.
No.
Like, to be sitting across, or I'm not across, I'm next to, but beside somebody who has walked a similar path feels like home. Like, I don't have to sit here. Oh, look at that. Like, I don't have to sit here and pretend and clean it up. It hurts and it's ugly and it's raw and it is awful. And you can do this. We can do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you have a pen now.
You're
going to write your own story.
I'm left-handed. It's perfect.
Oh, that's why you sit on my left side all the time.
It's true.
It's true. So thank you for sharing that. Like, I think, like, any listener out there, like, we all have a story. We all have that relative. We all have that hurt from a relative. And it's, I've always explained to people, like, what happened in my life was, this much. So for the listener, I'm holding up like 2 inches of my finger, and I've had all these other years to live this amazing life that we've been given, or how we choose to design it or rewrite it. And it's up to me on which road I'm going to walk down. And unfortunately, I walked down a lot of dead end roads, and I had to get to those dead ends, like, not again, and then turn around and, like, almost start all over again. But I have to be honest, my healing really did not begin until I wrote that Dear Child letter. And that Dear Child letter came because of another dead end relationship that wasn't healthy, and I reacted, and I own, how I reacted. And then that Dear Child letter came. And it's almost like the first thing that I was asked was, you're like, if you were a child being held underwater, what would you do? It's like, well, you'd fight like hell to get to the top to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing every time you were repeating things with your mom. You're like that child trying to get up and get some air. And you finally decide, you know what? I'm going to stay above and I'm going to keep getting air. and I'm going to not allow this to define me as a mother or as a person. And, you know, eventually you'll find that peace, you know, in the forgiving and moving forward and writing your story, because it's really about restoring your own connection.
Yeah. And if I can just interject one thing for those of you who are in the space where you're like, I'm here to move on. Like, I need to do this. My purpose is no longer to serve other people's purpose, but my own.
Yes.
and write my own story. And you're sitting here with the pen going, how in the world? Like, I get clients here at this space. Like, I know I'm not supposed to people please anymore. I know I'm not supposed to live their purpose. Like, how in the world do I figure this out? Your purpose is what makes you excited, that you feel good about at the end of the day. So go after the things that feel good to your body. That's why I do body. That's why I do somatic experiencing. Your body tells you.
Yes.
And so when you get back into it after years of people pleasing and self-abandonment, and you say, oh my gosh, flowers give me like butterflies in my stomach, or going out and kayaking is my thing because I feel the butterflies. That's you speaking to yourself for so many years when you haven't listened.
Yes. Unless you're out kayaking or paddleboarding with alligators.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
No, I just did that. I was scary. Their little eyes staring at you. I thought it was going to be like the ho-ho snack. Like something.
Interesting choice of words.
I just pictured ho-hos for some reason. I haven't thought about ho-hos in years.
They're
I used to love those. They were in my lunch like every day. Huh. That's probably why I have to run so much now. So, you know, here's the thing. Like, we go through things and it hurts. It does hurt, but that's humanity. That's like, we have to hurt sometimes, right? And pain deserves to be witnessed. I wrote this stuff down too.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're not weak because it hurt. And a lot of people think they're weak if they hurt or they let someone hurt them. For God's sakes, you're human. We are all human. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say, that broke me for a while. I mean, I can definitely sit here and say I've had things that have completely broke me. And it shook my foundation. It shook my world. It cracked my foundation. You know, I had to glue some things back together. And it made me question things I thought I knew. And that's really when you start the process, is when you start questioning things you know because your foundation is cracked.
And can I say what's beautiful about that is the statistics show we only know ourselves as well as our parents knew us. So a lot of us are fucked. And that questioning, starting the questioning in the way that you would have wanted a parent, like, what's your favorite color? Who was your favorite teacher? What's your favorite superhero? That's the beginning of having the relationship with yourself that you should have learned so long ago.
And I look at things because I don't think either one of us would be sitting here today if we didn't go through things. So, you know, we do this work because it's a passion for us to help other people not have to live in it for so long. Like, okay, great. You're realizing it today. Let's start our coaching. Let's start our sessions. Let's do the work. And I think that is what our passion and our rewards in life have come from, all this stuff happening to us, because we're like, okay, it left a mark, but here's what I'm going to do with that mark that it left. It's going to turn into a positive. I'm going to help other people. And that kind of became both of our passions, which I love. That's how we found each other. Well, it was your birthday, though.
It was my birthday. Karaoke.
It was.
It was amazing.
I missed you singing. I'm sorry. So, you know, you do get to a point where you are done allowing this stuff to define you, because for a long time we subconsciously allow things to define us. And I mean, there are many times I could walk around and say, like, I'm just not worth it. I'm not worth it to this person. But bullshit, I'm more than worth it. And if I'm not worth it, then you know what? Then that person's not worth it to me. I shouldn't say it like that, but you know.
No, I get it.
But as you're moving on and you're not allowing this to define you, it doesn't mean that you forget. Like, if you do forget, then like there's nothing to work for. Like, you can't forget what made you, you know. But it means you refuse to stay tethered, like I told you. You're erasing the story. You're holding your pen. You're writing your new chapter. But again, it's what you choose to become after all of this, And like I said, I chose to walk. I don't want any more dead ends. Like I'm done with dead ends. They're long walks, and then I got to turn around and walk back. And it's just too long of a walk for me. It's like climbing a mountain because you have to come back down,
Your feet are tired.
My toe hurts. I have a messed up toe, people. Okay. It's not funny. So I want to break this down because I think there's many faces of forgiveness I want to talk about. So I gotta put my eyes on. Jeez. This is when you know you're getting old right here. So you have the whispered kind. So I kind of talked about these. So it's that quiet internal release that you have. You forgive silently, again, not for them, but for yourself, to set yourself free. And, like there's a quote drop here. So I forgave you when I stopped replaying the moment you broke me. I think that's really strong. So I forgave you when I stopped replaying all the abuse. I stopped replaying it. I stopped allowing things that I saw that reminded me of it to break me at that point in time. There are a couple things in life that if I see it, it will remind me of a certain thing. And I've allowed that to stop. Matter of fact, I'll just share it. You want me to share it?
Do it.
Okay. So there's a thing with those claw bathtubs. What are those claws called again? The bear claw bathtubs, whatever they're called. But it has those claws. And that stands on those four legs. That was a huge trauma trigger for me.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, I was at the store and there was a picture of that tub, and I bought it, and it is hanging up on my bathroom wall. And that was my way of saying, these tubs are not owning me anymore at all.
It's the reclamation.
And so, like 2 years ago, I found that tub, and it is hanging upstairs in my bathroom right now. And that's what I did personally to say, you know what? That tub is no longer going to define me or memories.
Can I share a quick one?
Yes.
I run a group called the Peaceful Goddess Project with my friend Kathy Harlow. And I do that because it's not possible that every woman in the world is a danger to me. I started that group because I'm terrified of mingling with women and being judged by women. And I threw myself into that work because I'm going to learn, like your claw-footed tub, that not all claw-footed tubs are a problem,
right?
And are not a trigger. And maybe they can be something that feels good.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice bubble bath.
Yeah, for sure.
Good for you with that.
Thank you. I love that work.
I know. I love the stuff I see that you're doing with it. Okay, so then the boundary kind. So forgiveness with boundaries is real. I forgive you, and I'm blocking your number with love. Bye. I forgive you, but I'm deleting you from my Facebook.
You like all my exes, like every single one of
them. So you have to set that boundary, though. So you do have the boundary kind of forgiveness. And you do have to set boundaries, because then you're like, you are present for yourself after those boundaries are set. The delayed kind. Okay. So forgiveness isn't Amazon Prime. Okay. It's not coming overnight. It doesn't always show up in 2 days. Sometimes it takes years, and that's okay. So you get to heal on your own timeline and someone else's guilt clock. And that would probably be a prime example of what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
The delayed kind.
For sure.
And then the forgiving yourself kind. So this might be one of the hardest ones, obviously. But forgiving yourself for what you didn't know, for staying too long, or for the times you self-abandoned to keep someone else comfortable. Ugh, never again, never again. Because the version of you always have to remember, and I will drive this because this is even Brene Brown's, like, she drives this, I love her. But You at that time were doing the best that you could with what you knew, the knowledge you knew, the education you had. You were doing your best at that time. And I think we forget that sometimes. We are so hard on ourselves. Like, why did I do that? I can't believe I did that. Well, you're only mad at yourself right now because you learned that you didn't want to do that. So you just learned something. So take that lesson, use it as a positive, and move forward. And don't do it again. Yeah. So then I kind of came up with these, like, name it to tame it. So name what's triggering you. So that tub, I named it. I'm taming it by hanging a picture up there. You know, I can say what hurt me out loud in a journal, in therapy. I acknowledge it. And I bought the damn picture and hung it up.
Good for you.
Write a letter and don't send it. We hear this all the time. This is such a classic one, right?
It is.
Write a letter, don't send it. Get your stuff out. Get it out. Whether you journal it, whether you write a letter, get it out. It's classic but effective. Get the poison out without poisoning yourself. Because if you send it, you just caused a whole nother layer. Reframe the story. So instead of saying, they ruined me, they destroyed my life, shift to, I learned what I will never accept again.
Amen.
I will never accept this behavior. I will never be treated this way again. Choose peace over performance. You don't own anyone a performative forgiveness moment. God forbid if I ever have to perform. But forgiveness is yours, not a show. It's yours. Many think, and I did it one time as well, that forgiving someone meant they won. And I think a lot of us get caught up in that sometimes. But the truth is they didn't win. You won. You get to win that one. Because I stopped letting them live rent-free in my head, like these people that hurt me. Of course, I mean, some people probably stopped letting me live rent-free in their head as well. I mean, I wasn't always the best. But if you stop letting them live rent-free in your head, while paying the emotional mortgage, nobody's going to pay emotional mortgage. Forgiveness is your freedom, not theirs. It's for you. It's for you. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to forgive on this journey, it's okay to be mad, healing, avoiding, or almost over it. But I hope you remember that forgiveness is not a weakness at all. It is definitely not a weakness. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about letting yourself off the hook. And that's the important part right there. Do you want to say anything else about it?
It's landing in a space of compassion. It's landing in a space that we are human and that mistakes are going to be made and we are going to do. And truly, Brene Brown's so right. Like if you look in the moments that I've lost my shit, and I was really doing the best that I can. And that's true for the people that we need to forgive. So this is definitely going to be easier some days than others. And if you're looking at it from a win-lose perspective, that's always a fight or flight response.
Oh gosh, I know.
It's always a fight or flight response. Just take a step back, treat yourself kind, and move on.
Right. Because basically it's not a favor that you're giving somebody to forgive them. It's just what you're doing for yourself. It's power. It's power for yourself. It's choosing to unlock yourself from the pain that tried to define you. So don't allow this to define you. Allow yourself to define yourself. Don't let somebody else allow you to define who you're not, because that's usually what happens. And if you're looking your past in the eye and saying, you may have shaped me, but you do not own me. And now I will shape myself. So it's kind of like that clay pot that you get wet again. You can like reshape it. Can you reshape clay pots? I'm just thinking a ghost.
Oh no, I know that
they did lots of.
I don't know. I know boundaries. I don't know pots.
I know boundaries. I don't know pots. Okay, Play-Doh, not Clay-Doh. Clay pot. Play-Doh. You can reshape it, so you get to reshape your life too. So I think that's a good thing, right? So just forgiveness. It's the act of saying loudly and clearly and unapologetically for yourself, I'm not carrying this anymore. I've got better things to hold, like peace, joy, and a future that isn't built on pain. Do not build a future on pain. So until next time, because I love doing shows with you. And until next time, keep living in confidence on your podcast station. Actually, it's Real Adult Wisdom. Somebody keeps putting living in confidence.
It's me. I got it wrong.
It's okay. I'm like, it's raw.
Are you going to forgive me?
I forgive you.
Thank you.
It's legit too. Anyway, I'm Becky Shaffer, your host. Leslie Brooks, I feel like she's becoming a co-host here. And we are so grateful that you listened to us today on Real Adult Wisdom. If you guys have any questions or comments, see below. I'm going to also post her next workshop below because they're good. Sign up. Go. She loves all kinds of people. You heard her firsthand. Come and scare her, please. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.